Okay, we are going to continue with our Magic Treehouse book, Narwhal on a Sunny Night, and we are starting today with Chapter 5, Eric's Son. Jack and Annie followed the boy up the rocky slope and down the other side. There was a wooden rowboat on the shore. It looked like it had been made by hand. 2 oars were inside. The boy put his spear into the boat, then pushed it halfway into the water. "Sit at this end," he said. "Thanks," said Annie. She and Jack climbed onto the rowboat. They sat together on a wooden seat. The boy pushed the boat further into the water. Then he jumped aboard and sat in the center facing Jack and Annie. He grasped the oars. He looked over his shoulders to see where to go. Then he pulled the oars through the water, and the rowboat began moving away from the shore. The wind had picked up, and the water was choppy. The rowboat rocked from side to side. "Hold on tightly," the boy said. "If we fall in, we will freeze to death." Jack gripped the side of the boat as it bumped through the waves. So there is a picture of the boat. The boy rowed around the bend in the bay. Then he headed towards the ice barrier trapping the narwhal. He rowed close to a wide, flat chunk of ice. "Hey, you," Annie called to the whale. "Don't be afraid." The narwhal was still swimming in circles. He had a cone-shaped body and a short front flippers. His long ivory tusks looked like a twisted rope. "We have come to help you," said Annie. "We need to break up that piece of ice," the boy said to Jack. He pointed to the chunk that was blocking the narwhal's escape. "Right," said Jack. "How do we do that?" "Sit here. Hold the boat steady," said the boy. He made room for Jack to sit next to him on the center seat. Then he handed Jack the oars. Jack grasped the wooden handles and tried to keep the boat from tipping over. The boy carefully stood up. He stepped onto the flat ice surface. The boat rocked, but Jack used the oars to keep it close to the ice. The boy started kicking the ice chunks. He kicked and kicked and kicked. Suddenly, he slipped and fell hard onto the icy surface. He clutched his right knee and groaned. "Are you okay?" asked Annie. "Yes," said the boy. He tried to stand up, but he groaned again and sat back on the ice. "Wait, I can help," said Annie. Jack held the boat steady as Annie climbed out. She kicked the fallen ice chunk, but it didn't move. "Use the spear," said Jack. He let go of the oars long enough to pick up the boy's spear. "Use it how?" said Annie. "Just take it." Jack held the spear out to her. "Careful, it's super heavy." Annie took the spear with both hands. "Slide it between the chunk of ice and the big iceberg," said Jack. Annie wedged the spear between the 2 solid blocks of ice. "Got it?" said Jack. "Now pull back." Annie pulled hard on the spear. "I can help," said the boy. Even though he was injured, he stood up, gripped the spear with Annie, and they pulled together. Bit by bit, the ice began to splinter against the steel blade of the spear. Annie and the boy kept pushing and pulling. So there's Jack and Annie. And on this page is the boy, and the narwhal is down here. Finally, the chunk of ice plopped free, like a cork popping out of a bottle. The narwhal kept circling the shallow pool. "This way," Annie called to him. She pointed to the gap in the ice. "Swim through there." The narwhal seemed to understand. He looked at Annie and turned and shot out through the passage. Jack and Annie raised their arms above their heads and shook their fists. "Yay!" they shouted. The boy looked at them. Then he raised his arms too and shook his fist. "Yay!" he said. Jack and Annie laughed, and the boy laughed with them. For the first time, he seemed like a regular kid, Jack thought. The 3 of them watched the narwhal swim away and disappear into the deep water. The boy smiled at Jack and Annie. "You both are strong and smart," he said. "Thanks," they said together. "Are you sure you're okay?" said Jack. "Yes," said the boy. "What's your name?" said Annie. "Erickson," said the boy. "My father is Eric." "Oh, I get it. Your dad is Eric, so you're called Eric's son," said Annie. "Yes," said Erickson. "My name is Jack," said Jack, "and she's my sister Annie." "Where do you live?" asked Erickson. "Far away. We're just visiting Greenland for the day," said Annie. "Do you live around here?" "Yes," said the boy. "Would you like to meet my family?" "Sure," said Annie. "Absolutely," said Jack. Annie climbed back onto the rowboat. The boy limped to the edge of the ice. "Do you need help rowing?" asked Jack. "No, thank you. I can still do that," the boy said. Jack carefully stood up. He gave Erickson his hand and helped him into the boat. Then Jack took his seat next to Annie. Erickson picked up the oars. He looked over his shoulder and began rowing through the ice-cold seawater. Chapter 6. The Mist of Time. As Erickson rowed across the bay, the waves were rough, but his oar strokes were strong and steady. "So, where do you live?" Jack asked, rocking from side to side. "Eric's Inlet." The boy nodded to a place between the steep hills where the sea flowed in. "Did people name it for your father?" said Annie. "No," said Erickson. "My father named it for himself." "Does he work at one of the research stations?" Jack asked. Erickson looked puzzled. "I mean, is he a scientist?" asked Jack. The boy shook his head. "He's a sailor," he said. "Oh, cool," said Jack. "I am a seafarer too," said Erickson. "Soon I will sail away on my own." Annie laughed as if she thought he was kidding. Jack didn't know what to think. He liked Erickson, but he couldn't figure him out. The boy's manner, his spear, his outfit were really odd. And who says seafarer anymore? Jack wondered. Erickson rowed through the choppy waters and into Eric's Inlet. The hills on either side of the narrow water passage sparkled with ice and snow. As the boat moved along the inlet, clouds covered the sky. The air grew foggy. Soon it was hard to see where they were. Jack could hear seabirds cawing, but he couldn't see them. Icebergs had drifted close to the rowboat. They looked like ghost ships. "Spooky," said Jack. "Yeah," Annie whispered. "But we're doing what our rhyme says to do. On a day that seems endless with no dark of night, travel through fog, travel through light." "Right, we are," said Jack. "But I still don't know what no dark of night means." Before Annie could answer, a bellowing noise came from up ahead. "What's that?" said Jack. The rowboat moved past a flat iceberg. Through the fog, a huge animal loomed into view. The creature was as big as a polar bear. It had 2 long tusks. "A walrus," said Jack. The walrus had bushy whiskers, a broad head, and flippers. Its wrinkled skin was the color of cinnamon. "Hey, mister," Annie said with a laugh. "I didn't know walruses were so big." So there's the boat, and there's the walrus. Erickson rowed on. He steered the boat between sheets of floating ice. 2 ringed seals rested on one sheet, and seagulls were perched on another. "Look, reindeer," said Annie. Through the fog, Jack saw a delicate-looking deer on the shore. Its antlers looked like tall tree branches. "You're beautiful," called Annie. The reindeer dipped its head shyly. "She says thanks," said Annie. "Did you know reindeer are also called caribou?" "Cool," said Jack. "And their noses warm the cold air before it goes into their lungs," said Annie. "Like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer," said Jack with a laugh. "Did you write a report on reindeer too?" "No," said Annie. "I just really love learning stuff like that." Jack smiled. Annie knew more about animals than anyone else. She could talk to them and hear them in special ways. As Erickson rowed down the river of seawater, the fog cleared. The clouds drifted off. The cliffs and the waves sparkled with the sunlight again. Soon they passed low hills and greenish-brown fields. There was less ice and snow. A few trees dotted the land. Sheep were scattered across the hillsides. "Oh, this is so beautiful. Has your family lived in Greenland for a long time?" 8 years, said Erickson. "We began the voyage from Iceland with 25 ships, but 11 ships did not make it." "Are you serious?" said Jack. "Yes," said Erickson. "That's so sad," said Annie. Jack was confused. What year was this? "Everyone knew the journey would be hard," said the boy. He looked over his shoulder as he rowed around a curve. "This is where we live," he said, as the boat glided into a sheltered cove. "Wow," breathed Annie. Anchored along the water's edge were 14 ships. They were long, slender sailing ships made of wood. Dragon heads were carved into their prows. Jack gasped. He had seen ships like these before. They were Viking ships. Suddenly Jack understood what had happened. He and Annie had come to Greenland in the time of the Vikings, about 1,000 years ago. Chapter 7, Another World. Lots of things made sense to Jack now. Erickson's clothes, his spear, calling himself a seafarer, and his story of 11 ships lost while sailing from Iceland to Greenland. Erickson rowed toward a small wooden pier near the Viking ships. When the boat reached the shore, he jumped out. "We are here," he said. Jack and Annie climbed carefully out of the boat. As Erickson tied it to the pier, Jack turned to Annie. "Those are Viking ships," he whispered. "We saw ships like that on our mission to Ireland, remember? Viking raiders were invading the coast." "Yikes," said Annie, her eyes wide. "We should escape now while we can," said Jack. Wait, let's look at the rhyme," said Annie. Jack slipped the rhyme out of his bag. Annie pointed to the last verse. They read silently. "Explore different worlds, show friends where to go, unite all these worlds with a word that will glow." "I think we're doing what Morgan wants us to," said Annie. "We explored the world of seals and orcas and narwhals, and now this world, the Viking world." "But what about—" Jack started. "Shh," said Annie. Erickson had finished tying the boat up. Jack put the rhyme back into his bag. "Follow me," Erickson said. Even though he was still limping, Erickson walked faster than Jack and Annie. He bounded across the rocky shore and started up a hill. Jack and Annie hurried after him. Soon they could see a cluster of buildings over the crest of the hill. There was a long wooden house and smaller thatched huts with several barns. A few people were working in the chilly sunlight. They were all dressed in several layers of clothing. Women were hanging clothes up to dry. Men were stacking wood. A boy was leading cows to a barn. A few girls were feeding hogs and ducks. Chickens and dogs wandered about everywhere. Suddenly, the dogs began to bark. Everyone looked around. A woman cried out and pointed at Jack and Annie. Two brown and white dogs bolted down the hill, barking ferociously. Erickson shouted a command. The dogs stopped barking. A tall, burly man strode down the slope. "My father," said Erickson. Erickson's father had long red hair and a wild, bushy beard. He carried an axe. "Oh no," whispered Jack. The Viking man looked fierce. "Wait here," Erickson ordered Jack and Annie. Leaving them with the dogs, he limped to his father. Jack nervously watched him speak to the wild-looking man. "How are you guys doing today?" Annie asked the dogs. The dogs barked. "Oh, you're just pretending to be scary," she said to them. The dogs tilted their heads, then started to pant. Their tails were wagging. Annie laughed and held out her hand for the dogs to sniff. Their sniffing quickly turned into licking. Erickson and his father walked down to Jack and Annie. "This is my father, Eric," the boy said. "He is chieftain here." "Oh, hello, sir," said Jack. "Glad to meet you," said Annie. "Where do you come from?" Erickson's father asked in a very deep voice. "Frog Creek, Pennsylvania," said Jack. "In the United States of America," Annie added. "You might not have heard of it," Jack said very quickly, because remember, they're back in Viking times. So there's a picture of Jack and Annie and Eric and Erickson and the dogs. "No, I have not. Where is that?" Eric asked gruffly. "It's on the continent of North America," said Annie. Oh no, thought Jack. He knew the Vikings hadn't yet heard of the United States or North America. In Eric's time, the United States wouldn't be a country for another 700 years. But Eric just nodded. "So you are from far, far away," he said. "Yes," said Annie. "Welcome," said Eric. He turned to his son. "Leaf, let us take your friends to the house." "Thanks," said Annie. Then she and Jack started up the hill, following the boy and his father. Eric called the boy Leaf. Jack thought, "Leaf? Leaf Erickson? Leaf Erickson?" "Annie," he whispered, "Erickson's first name is Leaf." "I heard that," she said. "Erickson must be his last name." "Yes, I've read about Leif Erikson." "And Eric the Red," said Jack. "They're famous." "Famous?" asked Annie. Yeah. They're two of the most famous explorers in the history of the world." Chapter 8, Around the Fire. "Are you serious?" asked Annie. "Leif was the first European to step onto the North American continent," said Jack. 500 years before Christopher Columbus." "No way," breathed Annie. "Yes way," said Jack. "Come along," Eric called from further up the hill. Annie and Jack hurried to catch up with Leif and his father. "So you're Eric the Red and Leif Erikson?" Annie asked excitedly. "Yes," said Eric. Before Annie could say more, Jack changed the subject. "Why did you decide to live here in Greenland?" he said. "I wanted a new life," Eric said. "People call us pirates, but I am a seafarer who searches for safe harbors where I can live with my family. I have found one here at the edge of the world. I named it Greenland." "Why?" asked Annie. "I mean, why do you call it that?" Because the word is nice, is it not? Said Eric with a wink. I hoped it would make others want to come live here too. A small group of people watched as Jack and Annie climbed to the top of the hill with Leaf and Eric. One of the women in the group stepped forward. She had long blonde braids and a kind face. Who are these children, my son? She said to Leaf. My new friends, Jack and Annie, said Leaf. They come from far away. Leaf's mother smiled. Welcome, Jack and Annie. Come share dinner with us, she said. She led them to the largest house on the hill. It was a long stone house with a steep roof made of grass. Leaf's mother ushered Jack and Annie through the door. She took Jack and Annie's hats, gloves, and coats and put them on a bench near the door. Jack put his wool bag there too. The Viking house was dark and warm inside. Lit only with oil lamps, the windowless house was one long, narrow room. In the center, there was a fire pit. Smoke rose through a hole in the roof. The house smelled of fish and grease and animal fur. Eric and Leaf sat on low stools near the fire. Sit, warm yourselves, Eric said. Jack and Annie sat down with them. Leaf's mother stirred a black pot over the fire. Then she ladled food into stone bowls and gave them to everyone, along with wooden spoons. Thank you, said Jack and Annie. The food in the bowl looked like a milky gravy mush. Jack was afraid to taste it. But when he did, he actually liked it. It tasted like oatmeal. Did you sail here with your family and friends? Eric asked as they ate. No, it's just us, said Annie, Jack and me. But how is that possible? Said Eric. How did two children find their way here alone? Well, Jack didn't know what to say. We have a map, said Annie. And here's a picture of them sitting around the fire in the hut, eating their oatmeal-like substance. A map? Said Eric. A map, said Leaf. May we see it? Sure, said Jack. He put down his bowl and grabbed his bag. He took out their map. He unfolded it and held it up for them to see. Leaf and his parents stared in silent wonder. Our land is south of here, Jack said, pointing. It's a long way south. It's off this map. So you used this map to come to Greenland in your ship? Said Eric. We came in a treehouse, said Annie. Treehouse? Is that the name of your ship? Said Eric. Well, sort of, said Jack. It's not much of a ship, but you guys have really great ships. Wait, your ship must be the best in the world, said Eric. Two children sailed it alone to Greenland. I would very much like to see a ship such as yours. Oh, Jack said, catching his breath. Let us go see it now. Eric stood up. Can we please wait till morning? Said Annie. We're pretty tired. Eric, let the children rest, Leaf's mother said. In the morning we will all go. The whole village will go. We will see this wondrous ship. Come, Jack and Annie. She picked up an oil lamp. They all stood. Good night, Annie said to Leaf and Eric. Jack put their map back into his bag. Then he and Annie followed Leaf's mother to a shadowy end of the house. You may sleep here, she said. She pointed to two fur-covered benches along the wall. Thank you, said Annie. She and Jack climbed onto the benches, and Leaf's mother covered them with more soft furs. Rest well, she said. Keep the lamp burning so you will not be afraid. She put the oil lamp on a small table, and then she left them alone. Jack, whispered Annie, we don't have a ship to show them. I know, he said. We'd better leave soon. After everyone goes to bed, we can sneak away. Right, said Annie. We can borrow Leaf's rowboat. She yawned. It'll be dark outside, said Jack, trying to keep his eyes open. How will we find our way? We can worry about that later, said Annie. Right, said Jack, closing his eyes. Let's just rest until Leaf and his parents go to bed. Stay awake. Don't go to sleep. Before Jack could say sleep, he dropped off to sleep. And we will stop there today. And the next time we start, we'll start with chapter 9.